in England and just chatting about a few stories from the past. And this little video is about how in the 20th century, middle of the 20th century, a lot of the stately homes in England were vacant, falling to pieces, being sold because of death duties and because of social changes. And in the 70s and 80s, there were house sales frequently held in England to disperse the contents of these stately homes. The land would be sold in parcels, the farms would be separated out and divided, and the livestock would be sold, and the estate agents, often agricultural agents as well, and they would usually be the ones in those days who would have the antique sales as part of their service. So there was a flow when I was a child, teenager, when my father was still dealing. There was a constant supply of house sales, and in those days the auctioneers were not inclined to move the stuff to a sale room. They were inclined to sell on the property in situ all the stuff. Nowadays they don't like it because stuff gets stolen, damaged, pilfered, and people fall down the stairs, get lost, and etc. etc. So house sales now are really unusual. They're not they haven't stopped, but they're rare, far less than they used to be. So in these dispersal sales, every single thing would be sold, down to the toilet seat, down to the curtains, down to the chickens in the shed, to the pots in the garden. And there's one sale I remember going to when I was probably 15 years old at Compton Verney. Compton Verney now is a art gallery sponsored by the owners of a wealthy football pool company. And the house was a Palladian 18th century house with a lake and a bridge and a capability brown landscape and a chapel, stables, etc., and an estate. And we went to view this sale, me and my father, and we drove down the drive over this bridge and parked the car in the quadrangle of this fantastic house. And the backstory of the house is that in the Second World War the government had requisitioned the house from the owners and had used it as a hospital, and the owner had been told to go away, and instead of going away he had a caravan in the quad, and he lived in a caravan from the 40s till when he died in the 80s. And because of his unhappy personal situation, or unfortunate personal situation, he had not had children and not got married, and the money had run out, and he had lived in this caravan for many years in the quadrangle of this beautiful house, and gradually the house had fallen to pieces, and he died, and his estate had decided to sell this this property for whatever reason. So it was a very sad story, and it was very sad as well that it had been used as a hospital, because all around the stately home were piles of beds, and some of the beds were not proper beds, they were camp beds. So the inmates, or the patients if you like, who had been there had had a bad time. First of all, they'd been wounded. Second of all, they'd been stuck in a stately home in the middle of nowhere, middle of Warwickshire, and the services were basic. But it was perhaps more of a convalescence home than a sort of a surgery type hospital. So back to the sale. The auctioneers had gone round and put stickers on everything that was not fixed down, and to regretfully, in those days they were able to sell architectural features. So the fireplaces were also for sale as well. Helmets were for sale. Balustrading from the garden was for sale. Urns, statuary, which was part of the original scheme, was for sale, though some of it has been recovered and bought back by them. So the auction was brutal. There was panelling which was for sale, and it was up to the buyer to remove it. The owner of the house, though he had had a very sad life, had indulged in collecting classic cars. So there was a cattle shed, and he had 200 or 300 fantastic classic cars. So he had on the surface a sad life, he'd indulged in this wonderful car collection. So the estate was sold, the contents were sold, the architectural fittings that could be ripped out were sold. And when I was at the sale, which was a 3 or 4 day sale, it was really the end of an era, and you could see this stately home, which had been in the family for hundreds of years, being dismantled and disfigured and defiled and ruined in a way. And the house now is, as I say, art gallery. The stables have been made into houses, news houses. The farming elements have been made into industrial units, and it's been restored, and it looks fantastic. But it's not a family home. These houses were made as family homes, and along with the family in these homes, there would be gardeners and servants and all the rest of it. So they were like sort of Downton Abbey type situations. Okay, thanks for listening.